5 sinister school lockdowns, terrifying secrets exposed from haunted hours of unexplained horror. The sun hadn't even risen when the first panic-stricken alarm shook the quiet suburb. Jenna, a dedicated night shift nurse, was about to head out for another long shift when her phone buzzed violently. The notification blared news of the lockdown at the high school, sending an electric chill through her body. The words "potential threat" echoed like a sinister chant. Wasn't this just a peaceful little town? It felt as if the very air had turned foul. Her heart raced as she envisioned Mia, her teenage daughter, trapped inside that brick fortress of learning, now suddenly morphing into a prison of terror. What is the school hiding? The darkness of dread cascaded over her shoulders, weighing her down as rumors began swirling. Who could it be? The eerie whisper of uncertainty crept into every neighbor's glance. What had once been familiarity turned to mistrust, each neighbor standing apart, casting pleading looks mixed with apprehension, each one a stranger harboring unknown secrets. Inside the chaos of the darkened classroom, Mia and her friends huddled in fear, breaths hushed as strange sounds splintered the silence. There were muffled footsteps, echoes that made the hair on their necks stand on end. Was someone lurking just outside their door? Flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows on the walls, twisting and turning, as if alive with dreadful energy. The comforting lessons of math and science faded into jarring memories, overtaken by a gripping terror that churned in her gut with each new noise. The school, which once felt like a sanctuary, now felt haunted, infused with tales of old tragedies that replayed like a nightmare. Their teacher, Mr. Thompson, known for his gentle ways and kind smile, seemed altered, his gaze too intense, lingering too long. A protective energy morphed into something unsettling. The whispers began. Mia's mind swirled with questions and horrors tethered to his past, tragedies that had left their mark on these very walls. Pieces fell into place, forming a picture that made her skin crawl. Outside in the parking lot, Jenna tapped refresh on her phone, desperate for news. Each notification was like a jolt of electricity, quickening her pulse with every unconfirmed report, each telling of a suspect roaming the halls. Anxiety clawed at her throat, making it hard to breathe. All she could think of was Mia locked away, vulnerable in a place she thought safe. Were they properly prepared? Had the police known? What kind of world had they created where violence touched their suburban lives? A pit of dread opened in her stomach. This was more than a lockdown, it was a fracture in her community. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications, so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Back in Mia's classroom, dread fused with confusion as muffled screams reverberated through the floorboards. The class was sent spiraling into a panic, the air thick with despair and fear. What's happening? Someone cried, the question hanging heavy, desperate for answers their world no longer offered. Who were they hiding from? Every face painted with anticipation, they were inching closer to discovering something unspeakable, a revelation that could shatter the faint grip of sanity they still clung to. As Mia felt the oppressive darkness close in, she mustered her courage, the need for answers igniting a fire within her. Outside, Jenna felt a magnetic pull toward the school, an instinct guiding her as if something deeper was at risk. But just as Mia prepared to confront her reality, a shadow moved. A figure lurked in the corner of the classroom, eyes glinting with unfathomable malice. The lights flickered ceaselessly, then plunged into an abyss of darkness. A silence settled, thick as dread, leaving them entwined with terror. What horror awaited them? The answer hung tantalizingly close, just beyond reach. A chilling growl emerged, reverberating off the classroom walls. Mia's heart raced within her chest, beating against her ribs like a caged animal desperate to escape. The figure remained still, yet somehow, in the oppressive darkness, Mia felt its gaze piercing through her. Was it watching? Each shallow breath threatened to unhinge her composure, but she forced herself to stay rooted, her instincts screaming at her to run, to hide. "Stay quiet," Mr. Thompson's voice cut through, icy and commanding. It was unlike anything she'd ever heard from him. The kind smile was gone, replaced by a grimace that didn't quite fit. "Everyone, stay in your seats." But the words, meant to comfort, only ignited panic in some of the kids. A few stifled gasps cut the air, and one girl, trembling, began to cry. That sound bounced around the enclosed space like a signal, drawing the darkness closer. Outside, Jenna's stomach churned. The sound of sirens wailed in the distance, clashing with the panic rising in her throat. She wanted to scream. Huddled on the sidewalk with other parents, they had formed an anxious cluster, each face twisted with fear and confusion. The police had arrived, but why didn't they storm the school? What were they waiting for? Suddenly, a child burst through the entrance, wild-eyed and gasping. "They're inside!" The boy screamed. "God, they're coming!" It was a heartbreaking sight, and innocence swept into adult horrors. Jenna's heart sank, and dread seeped into her bones. She instinctively took a step toward the doors, but an officer held her back, urgency etched across his features. "Ma'am, you can't go in there." Inside, tension crackled as more shadows danced, invading the sanctuary of the room. Mia felt the urge to call out, to run, but something anchored her to her seat. The weight of despair settled deeper, wrapping her tighter in its grasp. Whispers filled the air, bouncing off discolored walls covered with decades of muted laughter, now tainted by terror. "I heard it," Mia's friend whispered, her face pale as a ghost. "I heard it say my name." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, sending a fresh wave of terror radiating through the room. The flickering lights burst into a furious overhead blaze, illuminating the figure in all its grotesque glory, a haunting reflection of their fears. Its eyes glowed with malevolence, hungrily searching the room as it stepped into the threshold with a slow, deliberate gait. Just as a wave of panic surged through the group, the lights cut out entirely, plunging Mia back into a suffocating void. The children scurried closer, their whispers fading into barren silence. But then, a soft voice pierced the darkness. "Help me!" It was disembodied, echoing in the confinement of the classroom, making the hair on the back of Mia's neck stand up. That voice, didn't belong in a school. It sent a shiver racing down her spine, a reminder that whatever haunted these halls was far more insidious than anticipated. Outside, Jenna's pulse quickened. Every instinct screamed at her to charge inside. She could sense, deep in her gut, that something terrible was about to unravel. The officers coordinated around her, but one whispered something into his radio that made her blood run cold. "We might have to clear the area. There's no telling how many are inside." Just then, another crash echoed, louder this time, and a scream shattered the air, sending desperate tremors through Mia. It was a sound fueled by genuine, unfiltered horror, and it ignited a primal response within her. She should scream back, fight, but every ounce of strength was redirected to the realization of their reality. "Mom," she thought, panic solidifying in her throat. What had happened to them? A chill washed over her, whispering promises of dread. The darkness wasn't going to let go easily. What waited beyond those walls? In this nightmare spun from the shadows of their worst fears, one question remained, gnawing at their sanity: was anyone coming to save them? A silence fell, thick and suffocating, encapsulating the classroom as the figure slowly advanced. Mia felt her heart try to claw its way out, a frantic thump echoing in her ears. The darkness was alive, pressing in on all sides, and her breaths came in shallow gasps. "Stay down!" Mr. Thompson snapped, his voice barely more than a whisper now. He crouched low, peering out, his posture tense as if he could physically repel the encroaching horror. But that whisper hung in the air, torturous and accusatory. "Help me!" The voice was hauntingly familiar, yet veiled in sadness. It clawed at Mia's sanity. "What if we don't help?" whispered a boy seated behind Mia, his voice quivering. What if it isn't real? Shut up. Mia hissed, fear and frustration bubbling over. But silence only thickened the atmosphere, pregnant with panic. They were all acutely aware that something unseen watched them. The temperature dropped, and Mia could see her breath fogging in front of her. Outside the school, the parents were a mosaic of nerves and desperation. Jenna fought the flood of dread threatening to drown her. The sirens were a cruel reminder that safety was supposed to be just beyond those walls. "What is happening?" she shouted to an officer, grabbing his arm. He looked away, not meeting her desperate gaze. "Ma'am, please. We need to establish a perimeter." But his pale face said everything. The fear was palpable. Back in the classroom, the flickering lights blazed again, casting monstrous shadows that twisted and turned as if they were alive. The figure was now within reach, its long arms reaching out in an eerie display of languor, fingers extended like grasping talons. Mia caught a glimpse of its face, a twisted reflection of despair and agony, its mouth stretching into a horrific smile filled with too many teeth. "Please help me." The voice, still echoing, seemed to wrap around them like a vice. Mia could feel the heat of her friends' fear, their breaths mingling, every heartbeat synced like a fracturing drum. Suddenly, a door banged open in the hallway, followed by a chorus of frantic footsteps and shouts. Jenna's hope ignited as she saw police officers rushing through the entrance. But then, Mia heard a low, guttural growl emanating from the creature, vibrating the very bones in her body. The officers hesitated, but their resolve quickly solidified. "Louder," Mia yelled, "over here." Desperation pushed her voice over the din, but the room dimmed again, the lights wavering. Jenna strained to listen to what was happening inside. "What are they doing?" She wanted to scream into the void, shaking with every thump in her chest. Her instinct screamed that the officers should not be in there, that it was not safe. The growl transformed into a cacophony of shrieks, human and inhuman, a horrifying blend that twisted the air. Mia clutched her friend's arm, eyes wide in terror. That can't be real. The screams had spiked into hysterical delight, chilling her core. "How many are in there?" the officer beside Jenna muttered to another. "We have to pull them out immediately." Mia's resolve weakened against the oncoming onslaught. Their only refuge, the classroom itself, now felt like a trap. Everyone pressed together, clutching at each other, a single tennis ball of fear and belief. Then, with one last flicker, the lights died, the room plunged into an inky void. Mia felt herself slipping, lost in the darkness. "Help me!" The plea came again, almost mocking, as if it were woven into the fabric of the shadows around them. The fear struck deeper, and in that terrifying moment, Mia realized that whatever awaited them outside had seeped through, fully encompassing their world, twisting hope into dread. Then, a single blood-curdling scream erupted from the classroom, loud enough to pierce the night. The air grew tighter, choking them all, and Mia's mind raced with one horrifying thought: what happens when the darkness comes for you? The classroom was swallowed by darkness, heavy and oppressive, as if it were alive, pulsing with a sinister heartbeat. Mia stumbled back, feeling the cold sweat slick on her skin. She could hardly breathe, her throat tightening with the weight of terror. The others were scrambling, heads turning every which way, eyes wide with panic. "Mr. Thompson!" Someone yelled, but the voice was muffled, drowned out by the escalating chaos. The creature's growl echoed, a low rumble that seemed to seep through the very walls. It felt as if the shadows had weight, bowing down on them like a collapsing ceiling ready to crush their hopes and dreams. Mia felt engulfed in a suffocating darkness that threatened to consume her whole. In the pitch black, it was impossible to tell where any sound originated. Each whispered breath, each rustle of clothing turned into a sinister chorus, amplifying her panic. "Mia?" A voice faltered beside her. It was Sarah, trembling, desperation lacing her tone. "What is happening?" I don't know." Mia stammered, her heart racing like a freight train. "I can't see anything." Then, the lights flickered to life. But this time, they illuminated a horror that froze them all in place. The figure loomed closer, its eyes shimmering like black holes, impossibly deep, pulling at her sanity. It grinned, that grotesque smile full of unnatural teeth, reflecting their fear. "Get back!" Mia shouted, panic fueling her voice as she instinctively pushed Sarah behind her. "Let us get out!" someone cried, lurching towards the door, but Mr. Thompson grabbed his arm. "Don't! You don't know what's out there." A rush of footsteps thundered in the hallway outside, but this time they didn't sound comforting. They were disjointed, chaotically mismatched, and laced with shouts of confusion and terror. Then came a scream, a guttural, wrenching sound that made Mia's insides turn. It resonated with a deep, bone-chilling finality, sending chills cascading down her spine. "Help!" It was a plea, not from the creature, but from somewhere deeper, buried under the layers of dread that hung in the air. "Shut up!" Mr. Thompson's voice was strained, trembling. "Everyone stay calm. If we stay quiet, maybe it will go away." But Mia knew better. They were trapped, ensnared in this nightmare with no way to wake from it. That menace wasn't going anywhere. She could feel its hunger, a dark smoldering presence ready to devour their souls one by one. Outside, the parents' unrest was turned to sheer frenzied panic as officers shouted for them to retreat, to stay back. The sirens blared, blurring the lines of reality. Jenna collapsed to her knees, mud and tears staining her cheeks as she cried, "What's happening to my daughter?" The atmosphere jumped with a magnetic tension, and an unnatural stillness washed over the classroom. Mia swallowed hard, sensing that something had shifted. The creature was no longer in front of them, it had retreated into the shadows. Her instincts screamed for her to bolt for the door, but where would she go? The outside world felt just as dangerous as the darkness wrapping around them. "Everyone, listen." Mr. Thompson's voice was now steady, determination cutting through the fear. "We can't panic. We need a plan." "Oh, what kind of plan?" accused a trembling voice from the back. "It's gonna eat us." "No!" Mia yelled, feeling the surge of anger rising inside her. "It's waiting for us to fall apart. We need to stick together." The classroom shifted again, the shadows creeping closer as if hungry for their despair. Mia's breath turned shallow, and she sensed that the darkness was waiting for them to break. Then, just as quickly, chaos erupted again. The lights flickered, sending a strobe of unsettling illumination across the terrified faces. An unholy shriek pierced through, and Mia felt the cold grip of horror tightening around her heart. The door rattled violently, and the shadows swirled as the figure returned, angrier now, wretched face twisting in rage. It was time to confront it. What would happen when fear turned into fury? And why had it chosen them? Mia's heart pounded in her chest as the door shuddered, rattling against its frame. The figure loomed large outside, its presence looming like a storm cloud ready to burst. The flickering lights turned, casting manic shadows that danced with malicious intent. She could see Mr. Thompson tensing, his spine rigid, but behind his veneer of calmness, fear radiated from him like waves of heat. "Get behind me!" he shouted, positioning himself in front of the class, an iron wall against the terror. Mia exchanged worried glances with Sarah, who looked as if she might bolt at any moment. "Mia!" Sarah whispered urgently, "We need to do something." But what? The options were dwindling, just like their courage. The creature was closer now, the grotesque smile widening as if it understood their despair. Mia locked her eyes with its abyssal gaze, and something twisted within her. It was a primordial connection, fear communicating on an ancient level. Then, without warning, the door burst open. Not from a mere push, but a forceful explosion, as if the very darkness had unleashed its full power upon them. It was in that moment, as the door splintered, that Mia saw a glimpse of the beast, all jagged edges and unholy limbs, reaching out with clawed fingers that dripped shadows like liquid night. "Run!" Mr. Thompson bellowed, breaking the paralysis that gripped them tightly. Mia's instincts kicked in as survival took precedence. She shoved Sarah forward, pushing past classmates who were momentarily rooted in a state of shock. The classroom erupted into chaos. Bodies surged toward the shattered door, hands grasping wildly for an escape. But instinct drove Mia. She had to save herself and Sarah. She threw a glance back, their eyes still locked on that horrendous entity, as if it could steal their resolve simply by being. Now! Move! Mr. Thompson yelled again, and the urgency in his voice propelled them toward the only route left, the hallway. Heat radiated fiercely around them as they dashed into the corridor, only to find that the dread wasn't confined to their classroom. Flickering lights revealed a scene of panic. Students screamed, a cacophony of pure terror, while shadows twisted unnaturally along the walls, consuming everything in their path. Mia grabbed Sarah's wrist tightly, forging ahead even as the air felt thicker, laden with dread. And still, the sounds grew louder. The tearing, gnashing, and unsettling groans of the creature echoed close behind them, hunting. "What do we do?" Sarah cried, her voice choked with fear. "I don't know." Mia shouted back, adrenaline coursing through her. "Find a way out." They stumbled into a side hallway, the light a flickering dim around them. The beast's growl vibrated closer now, a relentless echo reverberating down the walls, a menacing backdrop to their desperate race. The exit signs pointed toward salvation, but salvation seemed miles away through the phantasmagoric nightmare they were trapped in. "No!" Mia whispered, looking over her shoulder as shadows slinked closer, stretching like hands reaching for flesh. They had to find a safe place. "Here." Sarah pointed, pushing open a door leading into a supply closet. The room swallowed them whole as they collapsed against a stack of boxes. Mia pressed her finger to her lips, signaling silence, but the silence was shattered by the unmistakable sound of their pursuer clawing at the walls, scraping and howling, an unearthly symphony distilled from nightmares. "Mia," Sarah whimpered, shivering next to her. "What if we're next?" Mia's heart sank. An angry growl then filled the hallway, thick and pulsating, like the very walls were alive. It made the air too heavy to breathe, and tears threatened to stream down her cheeks. "Stay quiet," she whispered, though the words felt futile. The truth hung unspoken between them. They were nothing but sheep hiding from a wolf, and soon the wolf would find them. Then, out of the darkness beyond the door came a sudden silence. A stillness that felt wrong, as if the world was drawing its breath in anticipation. "Please," Sarah breathed. The door burst open. With a hard shove, flinging their sanctuary into chaos once more. The creature loomed in the doorway, its eyes glistening triumphantly. Mia felt her heart race anew. This was just the beginning. How far could they run before it claimed them? The creature filled the doorway, shadow stretching and curling like smoke. It was silent, but its presence screamed. Mia could feel the heaviness of its stare even in the dim light. Her breath came in quick, shallow gasps. "Run!" she whispered urgently, though she couldn't bring herself to move. The rumors of the school being haunted rushed through her mind, tales of students going missing and voices whispering in the dark. Clutching Sarah's hand, she willed her feet to move. With a sudden, sickening lurch, the creature stepped forward. The dim light illuminated its jagged teeth, the grotesque tilt of its head. It was inching closer, like a predator enjoying the chase. Panic surged within her. Mia yanked Sarah, darting past the ghastly figure and onto the now cold linoleum floor of the hallway. The walls reverberated with distant screams, mixing into an eerie symphony of chaos. They sprinted down the corridor, slipping on scattered papers and tremors fueling their terror. "Where do we go?" Sarah yelled, her voice edged with hysteria. "Any door. Just find a place to hide." Mia shot back, heart racing. Each pounding footstep shook her resolve. The exit signs glared ahead, but reality twisted around them. The creature's growl echoed, deep and resonate, creeping closer, closing in like the tightening of a noose. Mia glanced back, and her stomach dropped. The thing was right behind them, clawing its way through the chaos. They wrenched open a door marked storage. Darkness swallowed them whole as they stumbled into the space, rustling boxes and old gym equipment barely visible. Is it gone? Sarah breathed, pressed against the wall, her wide eyes absorbing the dim shapes around them. They stood frozen in silence, the air thick with old dust and fear. Moments passed, stretching into eternity, until they heard the relentless scratching outside the door. "It's still there," Mia whispered, a cold chill racing up her spine. "What do we do?" Sarah's voice trembled like a leaf. "We have to find something to defend ourselves," Mia said, her mind racing. The fear pulsating through the air smothered her thoughts, but survival demanded action. She started rummaging through boxes, shifting aside worn-out basketballs and torn uniforms, searching for anything that could serve as a weapon. Suddenly, the scratching stopped. A suffocating silence enveloped them. Mia's heart thumped in her ears, and she felt a primal urge to flee, yet the weight of something terrible pressed them to the floor. "Do you hear that?" Sarah asked. Mia held her breath, nodding slowly. The low sound echoed softly, steady, almost a whisper. It was a voice, intertwining with the dark like a ghost clawing for escape. "Let us out!" A haunting plea spilled through the door. Mia's stomach churned. "Is someone out there?" she called, but her voice wavered, uncertainty clawing at her. "Help!" the whisper twisted in her mind. "We're trapped like you forever." The air grew colder, the creeping sensation of dread creeping down her spine. "Don't listen!" Mia shouted, panic rising within her. "It's trying to trick us." But Sarah's eyes widened, entranced by the sound. "Mia, what if they can help us? Are you insane? It's a trap!" she snapped. Just then, the door rattled violently, an ominous growl rumbling with it. The moment shattered their fragile will. "Run, Sarah! Now!" They bolted for the back of the room, searching for an escape among the boxes. A flickering light cast brief shadows that illuminated their frantic faces. Behind them, the door splintered as something powerful struck it, a terrifying promise of what was to come. The need to survive surged through Mia like a wildfire. But just as they thought they could break free, a thundering crash sent them reeling backward, fear gripping their hearts. "Mia, I'm scared!" Sarah cried, terror undisguised in her voice. But something dark and primal was awakening in Mia. It was time to fight back, not just run. And before they could plan a next move, another sound reverberated through the air, the unmistakable click of the lock turning. What awaited them on the other side was a darkness deeper than before. What had they unleashed? The door creaked open slowly, like a coffin lid being pried from its resting place. A gust of stale air swept in, carrying whispers that wrapped around Mia and Sarah like icy tendrils. The darkness beyond was thick, almost tangible. "Stay close to me," Mia urged, gripping Sarah's hand tighter. They felt vulnerable, adrift in the blackness. At that moment, the faint glow from the storage room flickered, nearly extinguishing as ominous shadows crept forward. As they stepped through the doorway, the corridor stretched before them, long and claustrophobic. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering sporadically, casting unsettling shadows that bent and twisted. Every sound felt exaggerated, each whisper of their footsteps echoed like a countdown. "Where do we go now?" Sarah's voice trembled, laced with panic. It felt like the walls were closing in. "We have to look for another exit." Maybe Mia started, but was interrupted by a low growl echoing down the hall, an unsettling reminder of the creature that had chased them. They ran, feet pounding against the cold floor. As they rounded a corner, they nearly collided with another pair of terrified eyes. A boy, older, wild-eyed, emerged from the shadows. His clothes were tattered, as if he had spent days trapped in this nightmare. "Don't go that way," he warned, breathless. "It's everywhere." "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, desperation flashing across her face. "I'm Jake. I've been hiding from it. It watches from the windows," he replied, glancing nervously around him. It can smell fear, don't show it weakness. Mia felt a chill run down her spine as Jake's words sunk in. What do you mean, watches from the windows? The old gym, Jake breathed, his voice cracking. It wants to lure you. It seeks isolation, it feasts on fear. A shiver of dread washed over them. They were not alone. The creature, whatever it was, had a plan. Do you know how to escape? Mia asked, keeping her voice steady, even though her heart raced. Jake shook his head. Search the classrooms. Look for supplies. You might find something to help. But whatever you do, never turn your back. The warning echoed in Mia's mind. They couldn't panic now. Not when hope glimmered like a candle in the suffocating darkness. Let us find the nearest classroom, Mia directed, rallying her courage. The three of them made their way down the jagged hallway, eyes scanning for safety. Every door they passed was ominously closed, each one concealing its own secrets. Finally, they reached the first classroom. The heavy wooden door creaked open, revealing a disaster zone of overturned desks and shattered glass that it felt eerie in there, like they were intruding on a space coated in sorrow. Mia felt drawn to the chaos, an inexplicable attraction to the debris. We have to look for anything useful, she urged. As they rummaged through the detritus, an unnatural sound punctured their concentration, a soft, melodic humming. The tune was eerie and dissonant, echoing the whispers they had first heard. Mia, that's not just coming from here, right? Sarah stammered, nerves fraying. The humming escalated into a crescendo, morphing into laughter, a chilling, infectious sound that gnawed at their sanity. And then, the classroom door slammed shut with a force that nearly knocked them down. Stay quiet. Jake hissed, backing against the wall. But the laughter grew louder, enveloping them. Shadows began moving on their own, pooling in the corners, stretching towards them as if alive. Then, a figure stepped into the room, slim and elongated, with hollow eyes that shimmered in the dim light. A grotesque smile carved across its face, revealing rows of sharp, glimmering teeth. Welcome back, it drawled, voice dripping with malice. Mia's heart threatened to stop. What do you want? She screamed defiantly. The figure leaned forward, and in that moment, all hope drained from the room. It merely smiled wider, the shadows behind it swirling ominously. I want to play, and in that instant, Mia realized that whatever dark game they were trapped in had only just begun. But below the laughter and the creeping shadows, something else stirred, an ancient dread that pulsed in the air, whispering something they couldn't comprehend, urging them to let go. What had they awakened? The laughter froze in the air, a chilling echo that made Mia's skin crawl. The figure loomed closer, each movement fluid, almost beckoning. Let us begin, it hissed, and a rush of cold air snaked around them, constricting their breathing. Mia glanced at Jake and Sarah, their faces pale and wide-eyed. We need to get out of here, she whispered fiercely, but the figure's presence felt suffocating, like it was erecting walls between them and freedom. Suddenly, the classroom's fluorescent lights flickered violently, illuminating the figure in flashes. In each brief moment of light, it took on a more grotesque form, its smile broadening, teeth glinting like knives. Those hollow eyes drank in their terror, feasting on the fear bubbling inside them. Playtime isn't fun without the right pieces, it mocked, tilting its head in grotesque curiosity. Shadows twisted and danced around it, almost mocking their desperation. Mia fought the urge to scream. She had to think. We need to find something to defend ourselves with. Her voice was rooted in determination, but doubt seeped in like shadows around the walls. Over there, Jake pointed, his voice barely above a whisper. A fallen desk lay on its side, one leg shattered, exposing splintered wood. As they darted towards it, the figure moved in a blur, cutting off their escape. Where do you think you're going? It taunted, each word dripped in malice. There was a weighty pause, a moment where time seemed to stretch painfully. Then, the figure lunged, its elongated fingers sweeping through the air, aiming for Mia. Heart pounding, she ducked just in time, adrenaline pulsing through her veins as she narrowly avoided its grasp. Grab the desk!" she shouted again. But Jake and Sarah were frozen in shock, their feet glued to the ground. Wasting no time, Mia pushed the desk forward, using it as a shield against the looming threat. The figure recoiled, hissing as the desk collided with it, the shadows momentarily retreating. "You think you can stop me?" it shrieked, the echo reverberating through the cramped room, shaking the very air around them. Driven by sheer terror, Mia and the others suddenly surged toward the door, with Jake finally moving to her side. "We'll break the door open," he urged, adrenaline giving him courage. They slammed against the heavy wooden door together. When it didn't budge, they slammed into it again, as the figure's laughter twisted into a howling shriek, reverberating like an incantation anchoring the walls. "Keep pushing!" Sarah screamed, panic driving her. As they threw their bodies against the door one last time, it finally broke free. They stumbled into the hall, gasping for breath, but the ambience shifted, colder. The flickering lights above grew dim, and that familiar humming began again, this time deep, echoing through the empty atmosphere. "Split up!" Mia yelled, glancing back at the classroom, knowing it wouldn't stay sealed for long. "We'll meet at the gym." The three of them darted in different directions down the corridor, shadows following greedily. Mia felt a primal urge to run, limbs moving on instinct. But dread gnawed at her mind. It was playing with them. As she skidded to a halt, a door on her right creaked open. Cautiously, she stepped inside, her heart racing as footsteps echoed eerily behind her. The room was smaller, cluttered with old exercise equipment gathering dust. A glimmer caught her eye, something dull but promising behind a stack of weights. She reached for what appeared to be a rusted crowbar. It felt heavy and reassuring in her hands. Yes, she breathed, determination firing in her gut. But could it truly help her in this nightmare? Suddenly, the door slammed shut, leaving Mia alone in the dimness. Panic surged as she turned, the shadows closing in. "Sarah! Jake!" she shouted, but the only response was the whispers of the darkness wrapping tighter, squeezing the last shreds of hope from her heart. The humming returned, louder this time, shaking the walls as the shadows thickened around her. Something malevolent lurked, waiting for its moment to strike, and as the shadows converged, they whispered her name in unison, a chorus that sent chills racing down her spine. "Mia, come play!" A blinding light flickered on above her, revealing a shattered mirror on the far wall. As she turned to face it, her reflection grinned back, a twisted smile that didn't belong to her. "Who am I?" Somewhere in the chaos, an unsettling truth loomed, waiting to unveil its dark intention. In the distance, she heard laughter, echoed by shadows that gnawed at her sanity. What was happening to her? And how could she escape what was advertised as a game but felt more like a prison? The answers hung just out of reach, nestled in the laughter of her nightmare. Mia gripped the crowbar, its cold metal digging into her palm. Every nerve screamed to escape, but the shadows tightened around her. She had to act. Breathing shallow, she turned to the door, a heavy, wooden barrier offering little comfort. "Mia, come play!" the whisper echoed, a sickly sweet taunt that spread like ice through her veins. The shadows pulsed and danced closer, beckoning with a terrifying hunger. "Get back!" she shouted, swinging the crowbar wildly, but the dark forms only twisted and slithered, as if mocking her. Each movement felt slow, heavy, like wading through mud. Every flicker of the overhead light revealed more of her twisted reflection. The smirk on her face now went beyond mere horror, morphing into something sinister, like she was part of this nightmare. The laughter swelled, drowning her thoughts. She needed a way out. "Jake! Sarah!" Her voice trembled, a plea swallowed by the darkness. But hope was a thin strand, fraying with every passing second. Taking a deep breath, she studied her surroundings. Equipment lay scattered, rusting weights, torn mats, and a neglected jump rope. An idea sparked. She could create a distraction, a way to buy herself time. Mia dashed to the far corner, her footsteps muffled by shadows, listening for anything that might alert the thing waiting just beyond the door. she grabbed a couple of weights, casting glances at the door, half expecting an ambush. Heart racing, she set them in a line leading to the far wall, then grabbed a jump rope, tying it as tight as she could around the weights. Her eyes darted to the door, ready to leap for cover, praying her plan would work. With a final glance, she swung the crowbar against the weights. The clatter resonated like thunder, ricocheting off the walls and shattering the silence. "Come on," she hissed, darting behind a large exercise mat. The room plunged into quiet as the shadows paused, absorbing the noise. She held her breath, adrenaline coursing through her. Then, with a horrifying rush, the door burst open. The figure stood silhouetted in the entrance, its eyes gleaming with malicious delight, focusing on the noise. "Not so clever now, are you?" it hissed, stepping inside. It prowled towards the source of the sound, feet shuffling like damp leaves scraping the ground. Mia seized her chance, slipping out from behind the mat, the crowbar gripped tight. She rushed towards the door, but something cold gripped her ankle. "Mia!" It coiled around her, the shadows tugging, pulling her back. Panic surged. This wasn't just a game, it was a trap designed to feed on her fear. She swung the crowbar wildly, smashing it into the darkness wrapping around her leg. "Let go!" she screamed, as the chilling grip faltered, allowing her to stumble toward the door. The figure turned sharply, its hollow eyes glaring at her with fury. "You can't escape!" it roared, the walls vibrating with its voice, but Mia was already out the door, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. The hallway stretched like an endless road, shadowy figures flickering at the edges. She ran, the cold air clawing at her skin. "Jake! Sarah!" she shouted, desperation lending her strength. Where were they? A furious pounding echoed behind her, reminding her that the thing knew her scent, knew where she was. Turning a corner, she spotted the doors to the gym at the end of the corridor, bathed in pale light. She quickened her pace, the shadows snapping at her heels. Just as she reached for the door, it swung open violently, almost slamming into her. Standing there was Jake, his face a mask of relief and fear. "Mia! You made it!" But before she could respond, a dark form slithered past Jake, its chilling laughter creeping back into her mind. "Did you really think you could escape the game?" it screeched, sending shivers through her spine. In that moment, Mia realized it was just the beginning. They had entered its realm, and it played by its own rules. With the creature closing in around them, dread pooled in the depths of her stomach. They had to face whatever this thing had planned, or they would become part of the game, lost forever in the shadows. Together, Mia said, staring into Jake's eyes as the shadows threatened to overtake them again. "We have to fight." And deep within those shadows, something stirred, whispering promises of nightmares yet to be revealed. What awaited them beyond the door, in the gym? The true horror of the game was just unfolding. The shadows pulsated as Mia, Jake, and Sarah stood together, hearts thudding in sync with the encroaching darkness. The gym loomed ahead, a massive structure saturated with whispers that promised horror of the highest order. Laughter echoed in the night air, winding like smoke, taunting them, daring them to step inside. "Breathe," Mia said through gritted teeth, gripping the crowbar tightly. "We have to be smart. We can't let it toy with us. What if it knows we're here?" Sarah's voice quivered, but determination flickered in her eyes. Mia could see it, she felt it too. They had faced the worst of fear already. The shadows had shown their teeth, but so had they. Jake took a breath, stepping forward. "If we stick close and move as one, we have a chance. Fear is what it feeds on. We cannot let it see us afraid." As they pushed through the gym door, the atmosphere transformed. The air became thick, stifling. The vastness of the room swallowed them, rippled shadows moving along the walls like serpents. A few flickering lights struggled against the dark, casting long, harsh lines that made the fear dance in grotesque forms. Mia held tight to her makeshift weapon, the weight of it grounding her, as a giggle bounced off the walls. "Welcome to the stage." A voice mocked, rich and smooth with a mocking timbre. "Stay together," Mia urged, her body on high alert. They navigated cautiously toward what looked like the bleachers, hoping to find anything that could help. Another wave of laughter echoed around them. "You think you can hide? This is where I thrive." "We're not hiding," Jake retorted, his voice gaining strength. "We're fighting back." A shriek filled the air, a cacophony drawn from night terrors, wrapping around them. The shuddering sound ricocheted off the gym walls as the creature materialized in front of them, its jagged teeth glistening in the flickering light. "Playtime is here," it roared, lunging forward. But Mia was ready. She swung the crowbar, landing a blow against its distorting visage. The creature twisted in agony, shadows receding momentarily. "Now! Run!" Mia yelled, adrenaline surging as they charged away, veering past gym mats and scattered chairs. Panic surged through them, but they moved with purpose, fueled by the desperate hope of salvation. They sprinted to the back of the gym, frantically searching for an exit. A door loomed ahead marked emergency exit. Was it a real chance, or just another trap? With every ounce of strength left, they reached the door. Jake yanked it open, and bright light flooded in, almost blinding. They burst through, spilling out into the cool night air, a precious breath of fresh freedom. "What if it follows us?" Sarah gasped, fear still clinging to her. "It can only get us if we let it," Mia declared, still gripping the crowbar. "We have to stay together and make sure it knows we want to play its games." But the shadows from the gym flared behind them, a feast of darkness that twisted and writhed, encroaching on their small light of hope. "They're coming!" Jake shouted, as the dark mass began surging toward them. "Keep running!" Mia commanded. They dashed down the street toward the sanctuary of their community, the school fading behind them. The monster's laughter echoed, escalating into a horrific wail, but Mia pushed through. She wouldn't allow it to claim another victim. They finally reached the safety of a well-lit cul-de-sac, panting and trembling, hearts still hammering in their chests. Jenna stood among a group of parents, panic written all over her face as she caught sight of Mia. "Mia!" Her mother rushed over, embracing her as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Mama, we fought it. We can't let it win." Mia's voice trembled but held a fierce fire deep inside. "You're safe, you're safe." Jenna sobbed, pulling her close. Suddenly, a figure shifted back in the shadows, watching from afar. The haunting malevolence seeped back, reminding them that the battle wasn't over, but they had stood strong together in the face of terror. "Can we ever go back?" Sarah asked softly, lifting her gaze to Mia. Mia felt the uncertainty creep in but shook her head fiercely. One day we'll return. But right now, we heal. And then we end it for good." As the night slowly swallowed up the shadows and the crew of parents embraced their children with relieved hugs, Mia glanced back once more at the darkness behind the school. The creature lingered there, a fading whisper of a nightmare, knowing that it would have to wait, for she had summoned the courage. Together, they'd reclaim their home, their light, and extinguish the nightmares that fed on their fears. They would write their own stories next. So this is the last of the Sinister school lockdowns. Each face around her filled with relief, growth, and an unbreakable bond forged in darkness. Their eyes held promises of collaboration and courage for what was to come. It changed them forever, and she was ready. The light of dawn broke in the horizon, illuminating their path forward, empowering their rebirth. If you made it to the end, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, and let your voice be heard. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this shocking ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.